Shoo-wee! It's turning into an exciting day for space weather. Not only have we had a nearly X-class flare that occurred yesterday, we've also got a filament depicted right here, which is in the process of ejecting right now. We named that one on Twitter, by the way. Make sure you follow us over there. And by the way, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. This is the past 24 hours from El Sol, the SDO, the Solar Dynamics Observatory, providing some spectacular imagery. Let's get a little closer. See that large M9 plus flare. And then just under the Earth scale there, you'll see this filament start to become unstable. We do believe it is in the process of ejecting, collapsing, or more likely a combination of both. Here's your full disk view. That is ionized helium from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Now, you may think the most exciting place to watch is up here. And that is indeed a substantial series of sunspots. No less than 3 or 4 sunspot groups up there in the northwestern hemisphere now. And we'll get back to space here in a minute. There is your SDO intensitygram, and you can see a large sunspot rising. It might be a little more obvious in the colorized magnetogram. You see that area of strong magnetism rising in the southeast. That's 3308, I believe, is going to be the name of that sunspot group, and it is already producing some significant activity. Let's see what's going on for volcanoes and earthquakes. Sakurajima is erupting. It's producing a 7,000-foot ash plume. Subanose-jima, 6,000-foot ash plume. Luitolo, 7,000-foot ash plume. As Luitolo explodes, it's a flight level 070. Flight level 140 over Semeru. A 14,000-foot plume of volcanic ash over East Java, Indonesia. Popocatépetl exploding, flight level 230. Fuego exploding, flight level 150 over Guatemala. Revenador exploding, flight level 150 over Ecuador. Okay. Also a lava flow happening there down in Ecuador. And Sabancaya also exploding, flight level 240. Please do not pole vault the caldera. Here are the past 90 days of earthquakes in a convenient bar graph form. And there is the map from USGS. Will cite quakes over a 5 magnitude for the past 24 hours. Doesn't look like many have occurred. So let's see what's going on. All right, what do we got? Papua New Guinea had a 5.0. That was at 17:19 yesterday afternoon. There is a location of that one that is north of eastern Australia. There's a 5.0 at Mexico. Pretty quiet as far as quakes. No major quakes. Those are I think the only 5+ magnitude quakes in the past 24. Indeed they are. And it's time to get back to space. All right, so now we're back to the filamentary view. This is 304 plus 193 angstroms. And there are indeed a ton of filaments. You can see huge plasma filaments up here. Many of these dark features are plasma filaments. Filaments over here, filaments, filaments, filaments. We're naming them after living people on Twitter. Here is the southeastern limb for the past 24 hours in these same wavelengths. And let's zoom in even closer. That's now 171 plus 211 angstroms. And you can see that large M-class flare occurring in that imagery. All right, so let's see what else is going on here. Before we do that, take a moment to support the channel. If you see the paid promotion in this video, that is the Hemp Lucid shop. So you can find links below the video to the Hemp Lucid shop. Enter the promo code SMASHOMASH to save 10% on your order. Help out the channel and perhaps even help out your health at the same time. Get your CBNs, CBDs, mushroom gummies, immune stacks, body balms, and more from Hemp Lucid. Again, enter the promo code SMASHOMASH to save 10% on checkout. You can find links below the video as well as on the homepage at smashomash.com. And welcome to the DR Renaissance. We launched our webpage back in 2019 as a result of pathetic, disgusting, and putrid censorship on Facebook. We saw the writing on the wall. Their share price began to decline in December of 2018, perhaps coincidentally around the same time that they banned us for absolutely no good reason. Anyway, we decided to launch our own website, smashomash.com, so check that out. Help us out with clicks if you're unable or unwilling to open your cobweb-encrusted wallet. And let's get back to our space weather. Current conditions are as far as the radio flux, which comes from the upper chromosphere and lower corona, by the way. The lower solar atmosphere really is where the radio flux comes from, and it tells us a great deal about solar activity. You'll notice on this graph, perhaps, how proportional the red line and the black line are. Those are the sunspot number and the radio flux, respectively. And there were some coronal mass ejections that we'll cover as well. We'll get to that. So here's our Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. This is NOAA's forecast, and no forecast for any geomagnetic storms or geomagnetic unrest conditions coming. There were some CMEs that occurred, maybe in surprising locations, and NOAA is forecasting a minor strike. So here's the NOAA forecast. NOAA is expecting a minor impact here on the 19th, sometime after midday the 19th. Or maybe that's a coronal hole high-speed stream. I don't know. Let's see. What does it look like on the map here? All right, that does not really look like a CME impact. Now, maybe it is. I don't know. NOAA's forecasts are often wishy-washy anyway. If any part of that CME does strike Earth, it will be a very minor glancing blow. Here's NASA's forecast depicting the inner planets, and NASA looks like it has that coronal mass ejection missing Earth to the west and north, which is what it looked like in preliminary examinations. We'll show you the in-depth analysis here later in the video. Let's blast through some more space weather stats here. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from space for the past 4 hours, and Earth is experiencing a geomagnetically calm situation. This map will show you magnetohydrodynamic pressure over the last 4 hours. Again, it is geomagnetically calm. With not a lot of significant space weather on the way at the moment. Keep in mind that situation can change with basically no warning. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground for the past 4 hours. This will depict the most likely places to see telluric currents. Also, the aurora, induction into systems like railways, power lines, and pipelines. At the moment, again, geomagnetically calm conditions. No significant space weather on the Earth side at the moment. KP index currently at 1. The planetary K index is an average of global geomagnetism. KP1 is quite geomagnetically calm conditions indeed. And let's move to the real-time solar wind. What happened here? Did I get my real-time solar wind out of order or something? All right. That's odd. Pretty sure we showed it yesterday. Maybe I closed a tab and didn't realize it. All right. All right, real-time solar wind is next. And we usually show this in black. There we go. I like the aesthetics. All right, so current conditions are pretty unremarkable here. Solar wind conditions are 431 kilometers per second for the solar wind velocity. Solar wind density, 4.36 protons per cubic centimeter. No major changes in the magnetic fields. Nothing noteworthy in the phi angle or the plasma temperature. Moving on to magnetic data, these are the GOES magnetometers measured from their geosynchronous near equatorial orbits. Those arc jet moments that you see there in yellow, those are the GOES 18 using its thrusters to maintain its geosynchronous near equatorial orbit. And those arc jet moments create plasma, which can affect the magnetometers. Next, looking at the top view ecliptic plane field plot. Earth has recently entered a South Pole current sheet, which I believe has been slightly more exciting for space weather, at least during solar cycle 25. It will not continue forever, though. We've had more South Pole-oriented coronal holes than North Pole-oriented coronal holes, I would suspect, without actually counting them. And we have a lot of North Pole magnetism still hanging out over the North Heliographic Pole. Until that leaves the North Heliographic Pole, we will not be at solar maximum. There's the latest image. Here's our line of sight field plot. Here the sun's B field is depicted in blue, north polar field in green, south solar polar field in red. You'll also see the Gong 2 magnetogram, which brings us to coronal holes. Coronal holes are super important as they show us the solar polar field reversal process. And I've got a theory as to what drives the solar cycles. And of course, those of you who know a little bit more about this, those of you who are not total amateurs, who are not total noobs about heliophysics, may be aware that stars seem to behave based on magnetic influences or perhaps their own internal magnetic dynamos. But in any case, I've got a theory about what drives the solar cycles, and my theory is crapf. Yeah, my theory, it's full of crapf. C-R-A-P-F. That's the only plausible theory that I can come up with, and I've been doing this since about 1979. So there's the latest image from our line of sight coronal hole plot, and we've got some very well-defined coronal holes rotating in here of South Pole magnetism. So these are all South Pole-oriented coronal holes. North Pole ones are over here yet. Sector boundary crossing is right about there. And we can expect some high-speed winds from coronal holes in the coming days. So this high-speed wind is probably about 2 days out yet. Can expect to see that show up late in the day on the 19th, maybe early in the day on the 20th. We expect to see a density wave followed by a decrease in the density and an increase in the velocity. That's what tends to happen with coronal hole high-speed streams. Next, let's move to sunspots. 3308 is the new one down here in the lower left, the southeastern limb. I suspect it's already beta gamma delta class, and we'll show you high-res imagery of that before we move to our meteorology segment. We did have a minor proton event. Never really reached warning levels there. I doubt it caused very many radio blackouts or anything like that. Proton flux there coming off the floor a little bit in response to this large flare. So this large impulsive flare here, peak flux was around 1640 yesterday, and it was a 9.6 plus magnitude M-class flare, an M 9.6 plus. And Oh, let's look at sunspots before we move on to the flare views. Here's 1600 plus 1700 angstroms. And we've put the Earth scale there right next to those sunspots in the north, just to show you that those might not look so huge in comparison to the rising 3308 in the southeast. Counting the penumbra, that sunspot there is about the size of the Earth. Great view there in 1600 plus 1700 angstroms. And here is this new group rising. Sunspot 3308 will be the name of that one. And on that one, just the umbra is larger than planet Earth. So that is a huge sunspot already. Who knows how many additional sunspots are behind it. But you can see a bright flash there. That is the moment of that nearly X-class flare. Significant event occurring mostly out of view from planet Earth's perspective. And here are our flare wavelengths. Again, we did have that major flare yesterday. Since then, things have been pretty chill, although the background X-ray output is currently in the C-class range. So there is your 94 plus 131 angstroms wavelengths. Here is the zoom into the equatorial disk. And don't worry, we've got your money shots. You'll see this imagery on lots of thumbnails and lots of people on YouTube today. That flare moment, that will definitely be popular. You'll see lots of 131 and 94 angstroms screenshots. We bring you a little bit more than screenshots. Anyway, continuing on, we're going to get to coronal mass ejections here briefly. First, we're always interested in what's going on overhead. If you're up before dawn, you might see Jupiter and Mercury ahead of El Sol rising. That's what's happening over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. That star chart is from skyandtelescope.org. Here's your solar system forecast. Here's where things are today. We'll advance this 1 week as Mercury blows past Venus and then Earth. Here's where things will be in 1 week. We'll have a crescent waxing moon on the 24th of May. Mercury leaving the terrestrial side of the system and joining the gas giants. So here we've got yesterday's coronagraphs. You're going to see a significant CME happening there sort of toward the end of the video. That is 85 frames from yesterday. Maybe an earthly directed component in there. If so, again, it will be minor if it is an Earth impact. There are an additional 39 frames from today, and here are the Soho Lasco C2 and C3. And let me just bring that back. And what we may be seeing here is separate events happening at the same time. So you see that CME there, that's 1800 Universal Time. Let's advance that a little bit more. Oh, darn. Missing frames there on the C2. All right, well, that's okay. We can figure that out anyway. There's 1824. I'm not so sure if there's anything earthly directed there. Let's take a look at Stereo A's coronagraph as well. It's located just a few degrees behind Earth at the moment. Stereo A is located here on the left. Please note the time and date stamps. These images are not synced. All right, so let's wait until we see that CME here. It should be coming out here in a moment. There we go. Massive bubble there. So let's see, 516 at 1909. Let's see what we have. Well, there's 2018. There may be a bit of a halo there, and our custom videos might help with this, because if we see some plasma, it's more likely to be earthly directed. I suspect it might be on the far side somewhat. Let's get it a little bit closer here. These are 24-hour videos, by the way. There's an even closer view. And oh, wow. That event is the entire sun, it looks like. So that must have been a huge flare here. You can see that that event is generated at the same time as you see this large flare here. So, yeah, if that has an earthly directed component, it'll be very minor. I suspect it is almost entirely on the far side of the sun. I don't really expect any impact from that whatsoever, as you don't really see... You do see some transverse waves coming out of that, and there's a bunch of material splashing back down right up here. I suspect that that is not an earthly directed coronal mass ejection. Anyway, let's bring those back. I'm going to let those play through one more time just to show you the animation from different perspectives there. Stereo A and Soho Lasco C3. Again, that must have been a massive event on the far side of the sun, because we could see a flare around the same moment, and then a huge amount of ejecta there looking like it's coming out to the west. So that must have been quite an event on the far side. And let's take a look at filaments. Since we've got one that is in the process, let's actually load the newest imagery here. We may have some new frames. This filament right here, which we just named yesterday on Twitter, is in the process of ejecting. Look at it, it's waving all around. It's saying, hey, look at me, I might be headed toward your doorstep later today. So there's a filament eruption happening as we stream the video. Also massive filaments, all these dark features. Some of these were named, some were not named. If you want to name filaments, join us over on Twitter. Follow the hashtag #NameThatFilament. And let's take a look at the last couple of hours here. The person who that filament was named after shall remain unnamed. So here's the past 24 hours. And here at the Smash News Network least busted name in news, 171 angstroms is the house favorite wavelength. That's ionized iron, by the way. I would also note another likely sunspot group there rising in the northeast. If you were hoping for 0 sunspots, sorry about that. It's not happening. So here are the past 2.5 hours, and check out this filament. It is becoming unstable rapidly. And that's part of the reason why we follow it. Again, make sure you follow us on Twitter. If you're interested in stuff besides space weather, not all of our tweets are about space weather. And let's move to our bonus feature segment. We don't want the video to be too lengthy. First, looking at the satellite's community dashboard here to see no satellite charging hazards. Things are smooth out there. And the reason we show the satellite charging hazards is because it gives us insight into things like space weather, things like the electron flux, which are measured by the GOES 16 and GOES 18 at their geosynchronous orbits using radiography, and they are endeavoring to measure that at the F layer of the ionosphere, which we will also show. Here's the 1-year graph of the relativistic electrons. That's the greater than 2 mega electron volt electron fluence, or electron flux. Here is the NOAA forecast model, expecting an uptick there in electron flux coming. No arguments there. These are minor changes. And here's the layer of the atmosphere where that is measured, the F layer. So that's located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. That is the vibrational frequency of the ionosphere in megahertz, millions of vibrations per second. And anomalies right now are minor. We show the data anyway each day because you never know when old data becomes relevant unexpectedly. When you immerse yourself in the data, folks, you often end up with answers to questions not asked. Ask Scott McIntosh. He'll agree. Anyway, here's the anomalygram. This is anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. Ionosphere looking pretty normal here over the previous day. Here's the latest image. That's 12:15 universal time ionogram and 12:15 universal time anomalygram. The total electron content is what we'll show next. That's the free electrons all the way up to 12,500 miles of altitude where your GPS satellite's located. And here is the total electron content. That will show you the most likely places to see GPS errors. Things fairly normal here. And by the way, if Earth's magnetic poles were flipping, we would see all kinds of abnormalities in the electron flux, the ionosphere, the magnetograms, and all kinds of other things, which we don't. Here's the total electron content over the North American continent. This is the total electron content anomalygram. That's the anomaly in electron count from the 10-day average. It's literally showing you a count of free electrons. Again, from ground level to about 12,500 miles of altitude, the location of your GPS satellite, the altitude of your GPS satellite. And let's close out the space weather section of the video. The heck? That's supposed to be over here, folks. We show that before the ionogram imagery, so people know what we're looking at. Anyway, here is your latest SDO magnetogram and latest SDO intensitygram. We show the refresh on purpose, and I suspect a lot of people will be looking at that lower left corner. At the moment, it only looks like an alpha class sunspot, but I think it's highly unlikely that that sunspot is alpha class, as it's already produced some major flares. Anyway, there's your full disk rock back. Let's move to meteorology. But first, take a moment to consider becoming a member of the Smash Team. If you haven't become a member of the Smash Team, then you're not going to get extra content. Now, we do have a Patreon also. That's to help people donate. If you appreciate these videos, prefer to see them remain existent, publicly visible, and free for all to view, consider becoming a member of the Smash Team. Smashomash.com/Smash Team is our own subscription services site. We launched that in October of 2021. To gain capabilities, because, well, it's just superior to Patreon. Smashomash.com/Smash Team. There's a gold level, there's a silver, there's a bronze level, there's even a gold annual paid up subscription. That is the best value. Smashomash.com/Smash Team. Support the channel that way. And if you haven't checked out our new Amazon shop, we just added like 37 items in the cycling part yesterday. If you're interested in things like bike tires too, if you want to know what kind of helmet I'm currently wearing, certain accessories will be shown there, and today's featured product is the shirt that I'm currently wearing. So yeah, I am a collector of Hawaiian shirts. Today I'm wearing the pink flamingo shirt, which you can find on the Amazon shop. Also, if you want to see my radiation reflecting hat and lots more. Again, 37 items added to the cycling items list just yesterday, so check that out. Amazon.com/shop/Smashomash. All right, so next thing we're looking at here are the data from nullschool.net of carbon monoxide. Yeah, I think the carbon monoxide capital of the world is Alberta right now. Lots of fires burning there, and look at the levels. 11,388 parts per billion. That is some low air quality. So one of the many features that you can view on nullschool.net is the carbon monoxide map. You can also view other chemical concentrations like carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide. We're going to focus on weather phenomena, starting with the surface winds of the eastern world. There are they, and there are the jet streams. Jet streams of the central world, that's Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, looking like this. Here is the surface wind scenario for this side of the planet. Surface winds for the Americas, shown here. And here are the 250 hectopascal winds which depict the jet stream. Little more coherent jet stream over the U.S. now. Still pretty incoherent, though, over the west portion. Next, we'll show clouds and fog over the Americas. Yeah, clouds and fog. We've got some stagnant-looking systems there over Brazil. You can see clouds just kind of hanging out there and not really moving. Some of those equatorial bands actually moving east to west. Anyway, that's what's going on. According to the 3.9 micrometer infrared spectra from the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite. Croissant Earth, depicted on a fake Adobe Photoshop spherical template. And we are enraging herp-derps on the internet on the regs. Yeah, herp-derp. Contrails are geoengineering. Herp-derp. Ow! Look at that. Freeze watches. Freeze watches, folks. If your location's lit on this map, head to weather.gov and click your location. Those are freeze watches for huge portions of the Northeast. We're expecting temperatures into the 30s in the coming days. So let's show you some forecasts here. Again, that's the National Weather Service website, weather.gov. If your location's lit, check it out. Here's your temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. And that is some cold weather coming. I mean, it's already cold. It's going to get colder. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Northwest, it's like 16 degrees Celsius above normal. That's your GFS 72-hour temperature anomaly forecast. Unseasonably hot temperatures in the Northwest. As the rain-dry cycles just go bonkers in places like Western Washington and Oregon. Dag. Also Northern California getting hit. Here's your 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast. We'll also show the lightning mapper. North Carolina got blanketed with some lightning there over the past about 10 hours. And let's look at a real-time lightning map next to see if there are any terrestrial strikes in the U.S. A little bit of lightning activity there south of Nolens. Yeah, Nolens. That is an estuarial swamp if I ever saw one. Nolens, the mud capital of the U.S. Nolens is a city where you can get muddy just by getting up in the morning. Anyway, those are our current lightning strikes courtesy of lightningmaps.org. Check it out next time you hear thunder. It could save your bacon. Hey, check it out. There's a terrestrial strike coming in. Right at the Oklahoma Panhandle. Hal and Fern Cooper Wildlife Management Area. There's thunder rolling in near the Fort Supply State Wildlife Management Area. Next, how about a giant satellite map? Give that a minute to initialize. It's well worth it. Windy.com, by the way, they've got a great mobile app. If you've never seen it, there's the visible satellite data over the Atlantic and the Pacific and large portions of the Indian Ocean. We'll also show U.S. Doppler radar. No major precipitation here over the U.S., and the wind is just whistling outside, by the way. It is cool and very, very windy here in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. There's your lower 48 view. We'll also show the clouds and fog and water vapor. And we usually wait to initialize that so it gets the most up-to-date information for you, as these things will refresh. These things won't refresh, actually. So there's clouds and fog. There is water vapor. We'll go over that one more time. Cold air pushing down from eastern Canada, right on top of eastern Pennsylvania. All of Pennsylvania, actually, seeing exceedingly cold temperatures. Here's your recap U.S. Doppler radar. Clouds and fog. And there is water vapor. Once again, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. We'll be back with more live streams and lots more content coming, as there is certainly plenty to view. In the meantime, I'll have been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, and may that solar wind be at your back.